Hello, welcome back to the channel, assuming you came for the first one. If you didn't, why not? This time we're doing a kind of an audio podcast. We'll be doing a mix of the audio stuff and the kind of video that I just did with Alan there, depending on, kind of who we've got available. I've got Andy with me today, if I can introduce Andy.
Hello there, hey Calum, hey everybody.
Welcome everyone. Basically, me and Andy have done a couple of videos before on, again, some of the different channels we've done, but today we're going to talk about 4K and whether 2015 is going to be the year of 4K, basically. Is it going to get a real hold in the market? And there's a few different things to look at here in terms of, the displays. There's more and more kind of monitors and TVs appearing with them now. Cameras are shooting in them. Some of them shooting in 4K by default now. And obviously there's distribution systems like you can pay extra money to Netflix. Some people say they're paying too much already anyway. But you can pay extra money if you want to get the 4K. And I think you've got a choice of like 2 programs or something. But ultimately I think they're going to add more. So have you dabbled much with 4K yet?
A little bit. I haven't got any monitors or TVs that currently use 4K. We're pretty much stuck with 1080p in my house. But 4K, I think this is going to be, as we're alluding to in the title, this could be the year when I, along with a lot of people, start thinking very seriously about going for 4K. Because before it was, you're looking at a television well over £1,000. Or you go for one of these Secchi ones, which
that's true.
They're okay, but you don't know. But it's going to get to the point where TVs now are becoming, and monitors are becoming affordable in 4K. So I think I might this year go 4K, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about buying a new TV. I might do the same thing.
Yeah,
so
I think
there's that area there. Just the price might mean the adoption really starts going up. No matter about the content.
Definitely, with regards to the Secchi ones you were saying, people really jumped on that because I think, what was it they had first? A 50-inch first, and then they followed it up.
50-inch, yeah, and then they put a 39. The problem with the Secchi for people like me, who mainly use the displays for PC use, is that they were 30 hertz, exactly. Because there was some issues with running the signal through a normal connection. So standard HDMI 1.4, I believe, is limited to 4K at 30 hertz.
Yeah.
So a lot of these panels just run at that. But now we're starting to see a lot more which are able to run at full 60 hertz at 4K. And that means you can actually see things fluidly. It's not like everything super cinematic.
Yeah.
It's actually fluid. So, yeah, but these Secchi ones really they introduced a lot of people to it and thought, oh, maybe I should go down that road instead of just going for spending $1,000 on a new 1080p TV.
Yeah, I think a lot of people picked up. I definitely know a lot of people film-wise picked up the Secchi. Not that the colours were great or anything, but it was just like the only way at the time for a decent price to actually pick up something that they could see their 4K content on. Because some people have already started moving on to 4K. There's some people obviously that have jumped the bandwagon altogether. Apple have obviously released the new iMacs with a
5K.
Yeah, 27-inch 5K display where a 1080p video occupies a 7-inch section of the screen.
Yeah, well, that's just Apple being a bit clever because I think that was a situation where other people like LG were making panels like that, and they were like, this is a bit different. We could really get in there and stick it to everybody who's really putting for 4K, because we can now say, well, we've got your 4K, and then you can have a nice little UI around it to do your work on it. How pro are we? So I think that was a bit clever of them, because it wasn't obviously their panel. You see a lot of Dells using the exact same 5K panel, but good on them for really sticking it in there in one of their main products.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of that, because 4K is great. But if you want to see everything pixel for pixel, and you want some kind of UI around it, then you need something bigger than 4K. So it just ends up being pixel wars all over again.
I know, it's kind of a funny one as well, though, because I suppose the thing with the televisions, what people are going to start to do now, I guess, is definitely with people anyway, they'll buy a TV and they'll kind of ride it into the ground. Most people anyway. I think that was certainly the case with standard definition tellies anyway. And I think ever since we hit 1080p, most people will hold on to one set for quite a long time, I would think. And I think
so.
It's only going to be 4K that'll eventually tempt other people around, whether they get done by the marketing or whatever, and eventually they'll get those tellies. But I don't think any of those people will be in a hurry to upgrade after that.
Well, that's right. It's a very big investment, isn't it, for a family or just an individual person? For like a decent TV, you're going to be spending at very minimum £300. That'll get you something like 40-inch, and at the moment 1080p.
Yeah.
Starting to get into the more £500 region, you might be able to get a 40-inch 4K now, and people in that price bracket might well go for that jump. And I'm looking now, and if you get 55 inches for an LG for £700, so people are putting this kind of money down.
Is that 1080p or 4K?
Oh, apologies, that was not 4K. Sorry,
right, yeah.
there's a LG 4K for £700.
Yeah.
Not the 55, but the 50-inch LG,
right?
And that is a 4K one. And you start to see the prices really coming down. And I think people are going to go for these kind of things because it's such a big investment, and they don't want to spend another £700 in another year or two. They want to keep that and then again run it into the ground, run it for 4 years, and then see what happens then. But if they can do that, and when they have to make that jump, then 4K is available. They're going to go for it if the price is there, and they really are starting to come down now. We're seeing so many more 4Ks, and it just makes sense. It just makes sense. So people making the content for them must be scrambling to get these things working. One thing that really strikes me is they've got the streaming services, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But right now, there is no disc-based services that are really commercially available that I've seen that can compete and provide 4K content.
I think they're looking at kind of some multi-layer Blu-ray discs. I think Blu-ray could gain some ground back because it's taking a real hammering at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, because they've been talking about these dual-layer discs for a while, but have you seen many like Blu-ray like films being made available in 4K on these multi-layers?
No, but I have seen a lot of people that were Sony, for example, got a bit of flack because they did a marketing campaign that if you bought a Sony 4K film, they would give you a film that had been mastered in 4K and then delivered to you on just 1080p Blu-ray.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. I mean, one thing I heard was, I don't know if it was Sony specifically, but one of the big companies, when they first released the 4K TV, they knew they didn't have any way of delivering any content to you. So what they did is they gave you, as well as the TV, like basically a mini PC that plugs into the TV. And that had on it about 100 films in 4K.
I think
just
that
on hard drive, and then they could stream
LG
it.
That was doing that, I think.
That could well have been LG, yeah. Because they obviously recognised they didn't have any way of giving you a Blu-ray which had 4K on it. They didn't have a service which was like streaming online because they couldn't rely on the internet connection at the time. And so they gave you a literal big box, just hard drives full of 4K, just so they could give you some content which would be like actually in 4K on your shiny new 4K telly. Yeah. So it just kind of showed that there was obviously at that time really just a drought of content for 4K. And in terms of the disc-based stuff, which is commercially available, it seems to be the same. You can't just walk into HMV and just ask for a 4K Blu-ray right now.
Yeah. And
I think if Sony want to get in on this, they should get that sorted super soon. But the only problem is it's going to be fragmentation. Because I'm sure a lot of their Blu-ray players and just Blu-ray players in general can do multi-layer to a certain extent. But it's whether they can actually do it 4K decode at the same time.
Yeah, no, I doubt. I mean, I doubt
some
the
will, but
existing
not
ones
many
that are on the market. I mean, I actually just got a Blu-ray player for Christmas as a present, and I hadn't bought any Blu-rays up to now because I'd done most of my stuff through streaming or otherwise. But I mean, I think it was actually a really good Sony Blu-ray player, and it was like well below £50, and that's that's the kind of state they've got. Blu-rays have got. I mean, they were never tremendously expensive, but they're definitely down closer to the price of what a quality DVD player was not that long ago.
That's right.
And
I don't know the numbers, but I bet you they're taking a hammering because of Netflix and all these other streaming services.
Definitely. I mean, I'm looking at it just now. And in terms of what you've got access to in the UK anyway, I think probably in the States they've got a bit more, but for 4K content there's House of Cards Season 2, Breaking Bad, The Blacklist, Ghostbusters 2, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Jerry Maguire.
Boom.
So you've got, I think you're
all class there. You could basically get through an entire day with that, and that'll be 4K up to your eyeballs.
Yeah, exactly. And then probably cancel your subscription
price.
That's it,
yeah.
I know. I mean, I honestly can't say I'm fighting to see Jerry Maguire in 4K. No. But, to quote the film, Netflix probably are sitting there shouting, "Show me the money." in order to get it. But I think I was one of the early people with Netflix, and I'd get it for $5.99. But I think your standard one's $6.99. It wasn't until recently that I realised that there are actually about 4 different pricing plans now for Netflix. I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah. There's 5. No, wait. Yeah. There's $5.99, which is the base level one. And there's actually a limited amount of streaming, and I don't think you get any HD for that. You have to pay $6.99, at which point you start getting the HD, and then I think it was like $8.99 to get the full HD.
I did not know that. Wow.
Sorry, not full HD. Sorry.
So they're really getting setting some product tiers out for the service. Okay.
Aye, so you're £9 a month. You're £9 a month to get Ultra HD.
Well, I think. I mean, I can understand why, because they are pretty much targeting cord cutters, aren't they? People who are taking away their cable service and pretty much replacing it with internet streaming stuff. And as they get more content, it's going to be more viable. But the only thing I find a bit not off, but a bit worrying with things like Netflix is every now and again they just remove things without much warning because there's issues with rights.
Yeah, well, they've only got it bought for a certain period of time. It's funny, you can find certain stuff like, of all things, I was kind of scanning through it the other day, and I ended up on Top Gun. Don't judge me, I wasn't going to watch it. I just kind of came across it, but
Classic Cruise.
That's actually got a date on it if you go in it, and that will tell you when that's actually due to die. You're about to lose that, yeah.
Wow, well, that's good. That's a good service, that. I mean, it's just one of these things where if you buy a DVD or Blu-ray, you know you've got it. But with Netflix, that isn't so clear. You've got it now, but you're not sure if tomorrow you turn it on, you're going to be like, oh, it's gone. I mean, that's similar. That happened with Battlestar Galactica recently, I think. There's some people like doing countdown timers on it, saying, if you start watching now from episode 1, you'll be able to watch it all before they take it away from Netflix.
All right, so is that coming off?
It might have been the US Netflix.
Right, okay.
Because it's all to do with like different... That's the thing, it's all to do with rights holders. So in different territories, they have different content. And it gets taken off at different times, and they have... It's all a big mess, really.
Well, that's the whole thing.
I wish there was a way that they could simplify the international kind of copyright system so that you can... you don't have to do new negotiations with every single country to be able to use like different pieces of intellectual property.
Oh, it's robbing bastards. They always find some way to do it. It was like PAL with video games, NTSC and PAL, and you had to do it that way. But it's a funny one as well, though, because you find people making all kinds of work around, and there's not any I haven't seen definitive information which way they're going, but there's been rumours that they're clamping down.
I read this, but then Netflix responded and they said, even though it's legitimate, we don't support like the VPN.
Yeah.
But we currently have there was no plans in the offing to like really clamp down on it.
Yeah.
So they did respond directly to the story and said this isn't the case. But basically, it's as normal. So it sounds like they don't really like it because it's not what people have signed up for, who they're buying the rights from. But they're not really going after anybody for it.
But it's annoying as well, though. I mean, when you jump into like American Netflix, for example, and there's shows or films you would definitely watch, and you're struggling to find something on the UK Netflix, and there's even shows like, Peaky Blinders, for example, was a show that was over here. That is actually, I think it's part HBO, part BBC.
Right.
But it's it's filmed in Birmingham, I think. But all seasons of that are over on Netflix, or at least the first season is Netflix US, but there's none of that on the UK, and that's kind of one of those shows you would think. There's actually a shitload of BBC shows on US Netflix, more than there is in the UK one.
That's really interesting, isn't it? I suppose it's in the country of origin, it's got more... they generally charge higher amounts for it than offshore because it's basically extra revenue. Yeah. I suppose they're also competing with iPlayer. So... yeah, I can see that happening, but it is a shame. It just shows you that they price things differently in different places, and people like Netflix have to navigate those waters very carefully. Otherwise, they're going to be in big trouble. It's just not that I support it at all, but I do hear that there's a Chrome extension which is called Hola, which works rather well. So maybe have a look at that.
That's it. But there's been all the people battering their scare stories out about it recently about how it's like a peer-to-peer VPN service, isn't it? So your connection is being used by someone else, isn't it? Like I
believe that is the way it works. Yeah.
So there's all these people going, they'll be using it to hack into your house and turn off the heating.
Yeah, no, that's how it works. That is how the internet
Bastards. Okay, so, I mean, in terms of stuff that, like we said, there's a lot of monitors coming out. There's Samsung,
Yes, there is.
Dell got stuff coming out. And most importantly, like we're saying, they're going to be able to support frame rates of higher than 30 frames per second.
They are, yes.
Like I said, I know people were using the Seiki ones as kind of review monitors, but for computers, we're finding that a little bit jerky because you really want a minimum of 60
absolutely.
FPS, for smooth scrolling and games and stuff like that. Obviously, you'll find 60 FPS on on a PC gaming pretty much, but obviously we probably don't need 60 FPS 4K panels for the console market because they don't go above 30 FPS anyway. So
sticking the knife in there.
Yes, but yeah. So I mean, there's that. There's certainly options coming out. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, again, that's allegedly 1080p. But
I take your point. But one thing, I mean, there are some other interesting monitors actually coming out now. I mean, not just 4K. I'm slightly straying from your train, but recently there's been 34-inch monitors in the 21:9 wide aspect.
Oh yeah, I love that shit.
Which are I think they're like 3800 by 1440. So like 1440p, but stretched out. And they're quite. I mean, I think they start at about £600-700. So they're not cheap, but they're IPS panels, so great, great image quality, great viewing angles, so good for the kind of video stuff. But you've just got a massive wide thing. So if you're doing films, I imagine it's quite good for that. Yeah. But one of the monitor that really struck me actually was Philips have released a monitor, which is a 40-inch monitor, but it is a monitor, does 4K at 60 hertz, uses DisplayPort, and it costs £600.
And is that 16:9 or 21:9?
It's 16:9. This is a standard, widescreen aspect ratio.
Because Philips were the first ones to start pissing about with 21:9. Because remember they started making those home cinema tellies that you kind of always wanted, but then you knew you'd literally only be watching letterbox or you'd only be watching anamorphic films. Otherwise,
you have to cry a bit. If you get some 16:9 in there, you cry a bit. And if you've got anything 4:3, then my goodness.
Yeah. So, run me through the specs on that again. So, 600 quid.
600 quid, 4K.
Yep.
It's a VA panel, so it's a vertical alignment panel. Yep. So, like what the Dells use, and what a lot of TVs with good blacks in like a LCD arrangement use. So, it's not quite as good as IPS, but still pretty good.
Higher frame rates than IPS, or higher refresh rate?
Refresh rate on VA is generally a little bit better.
Right.
So so you see some 120 hertz VA panels on the monitor side, so that they have got a faster refresh, but they're, in terms of like viewing angles, not quite as good as IPS, but still pretty decent image quality. And the main thing is with VA, they have very deep blacks. The contrast ratio is very high. So for like a monitor we're doing film work, I can imagine it'd be quite good. So it's 40 inch, so you've got this massive screen. And because it's so big and you're running at 4K resolution, you can actually, the pixel pitch, like the size of the pixels, is very similar to a 1440p 27-inch, like one of the older 27-inch iMacs.
Yeah.
So just imagine that, but stretched over 40 inches.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So it's, I mean, for 600 quid, that is a steal.
Well, I'm sold.
It's basically taken a TV panel and then just put in the monitor electronics they need. And given it an HDMI port, which is just frankly the way it should be.
No, that sounds pretty good. I think there's definitely a lot of options. I think one of the problems that we're going to have now is this kind of arms race in the portable devices market as well, because they're rushing more and more to increase like the PPI, the pixel amount of pixels in the mobile space. But I think we're definitely going to get to a point, and I heard it's going to get addressed better in Windows 10, but there's been criticism up to now that
the high DPI scaling,
not so good. But in OS X, it's pretty good, I have to say. But then again, of course, it's got to be because their two their flagship laptop line both come with pretty high resolution,
really high resolution displays. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting kind of quandary. You're getting continuously increased resolution in the monitors. But if you just keep the same scheme for running your operating system, you can't see anything because everything's too small.
Yeah.
So it's something which Windows does seem to now be addressing, which is good because even Windows 8 it wasn't that great.
Yeah.
So Windows 10 better really buck up, because people are going to be using 4K monitors more and more, and they need to be able to get on board and say this is going to look as good as a 1080p monitor does now, but you can use more of it. I mean, that's what they need to be aiming for, because if they don't get 4K right on Windows 10, people are going to be like, well, let's just switch over to OS X, or we've got to fix it ourselves. Which is just
there's some people that will probably rather give up computing first, but
that's right.
But I think it's funny as well though, because in terms of like how that's set up, the whole kind of like, you get these laptops and stuff, like these gaming laptops that are coming out, and you're getting like, 13-inch gaming laptops that are using the display from like the 13-inch MacBook Air, which I know the big ones.
By 60
yeah, that's the one. And it's like, I mean, how many? I mean, there's not going to be any gaming laptops around, surely, other than one, maybe some of the 17-inch bastards, the big ones, that are going to be able to run games anywhere near that resolution. I mean,
that's right. No, there's no way. I think a lot of it's just for numbers, because they can say, "Oh, look how amazing this is."
Which I think is the biggest. Is probably the biggest explanation for the 5K iMac as well. It's just purely. Purely sales numbers, but yeah. So I suppose the other thing to move on to is cameras and stuff now, which is something I've obviously started seeing more. And people are starting to debate whether everything should be starting to get filmed in 4K now. And there's a reason. There's quite a few reasons behind that. Reasons people have got is for like archiving in the future. If you want to come back, you're going to want the best quality you can get.
Obviously, George Lucas should have thought of, but never mind.
Yeah, that's true. Well, obviously, the prequels, I mean, not that we like to talk about them, but the prequels...
Attack of the Clones was shot in 1080p, wasn't it?
Yeah, both on a Sony, something 900 or something. It's like an ENG camera.
Yeah.
That they were both shot in 1080p. I think Phantom Menace was largely shot on film, but I think
it was on film. It was, yeah.
But I also think the
That's why it looks so good.
Clones was like one of the first movies to be like fully shot digitally or something. So I don't know.
They really touted at the time, I think, but it's come back to
looks
fighting.
Fucking shit. If you go back and look at them, they really don't look good. But hey, anyway, let's not get bogged down in that. We'll just be fucking handbags at dawn.
We could get going George Lucas for a long time, but let the man rest.
As far as like that's concerned, there's other things as well. As obviously, 4K's got 4 times the resolution of HD, so for people doing stuff at the moment, they can crop into it. So you can take a wide shot at 4K, and if you're only delivering it at 1080p or less, you can crop in massively and still get good detail. So it's great for that. And also you can downscale a 4K image, and it'll actually give you better 1080p than it would do just shooting 1080p normally.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like
so there's reasons behind it. Obviously, the storage and stuff gets as a consideration.
Also, processing with it kind of. I mean, it's just it's 4 times the file size at least, and it's going to be more difficult to handle, isn't it?
It depends what you use it through. Actually, you tend to find that the video editors work a lot better with the high bitrate footage.
Oh yeah,
it's the compressed stuff that they have more of an issue with, because they've got to unpack it.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's the cameras now. I mean, you've got consumer cameras, or, semi-professional, some people would call them, but they're really aimed at consumers. The cameras like Panasonic's GH4, who's been one of the big flagships of it, and that is pretty much a consumer camera. I mean, you can go and buy that off the shelf in some, like Currys and stuff like that, and I mean, that's shooting 4K. There's also the Samsung NX1 that's coming out. Now, both of those have got kind of like higher quality bodies. They're more accustomed to kind of like semi-pro cameras. But, I mean, you're spending like under $1,500 for both of them, I think. The Samsung NX1 is recording 4K, but it's also using 8.265.
Oh, the new okay, yeah.
So, I mean, the file sizes are massively reduced, but there's a big problem trying to find an editor for them at the moment. You need to either reconvert them or do it that way, because a lot of stuff doesn't really work with 8.265 natively, because in terms of how they've been implemented, 8.265 should be proved to be popular and quite easily.
Surely Final Cut Pro can do it.
Do you know, I don't use Final Cut Pro X. I was kind of a long-time user of Final Cut Pro 7, and then broke my heart and I'm actually using Premiere now, which is probably closest to it. And I think you can kind of do it, but to be honest, there's kind of issues with it still. I do hear Final Cut Pro X has got a shitload of really good features in it, and you can throw like 10 4K streams at it in MP4, and it's fine. I think it's got a really good code base, but it still looks like iMovie Pro to me, so it's not one. It's not won my heart yet. But yeah, so I mean, H.265 could be the winner, because there's other cameras, like some of the first ones on the scene, like the Canon 1DC, which is a more conventional. That's just a DSLR type body, but it's one of the more professional ones. But
is it all okay to use like your old lenses with it?
Yeah, it uses EF mount, so it works with the element. But that's got a 500 megabit codec.
Okay.
So I mean, if you divide that down by divide that by 8, what's that like? Oh fuck! I'm showing it up. I can't do maths and talk at the same time. Shit. Fuck! I've just accidentally opened the calendar.
60.
Bastard.
Ish.
Yeah. Let's get an exact number for these good people.
Okay.
Because I would be able to do it as, but I'm trying to talk at the same time. He lied. Right. So yeah, 62.5 megabytes per second.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a lot. That's a lot of data right there. I mean, that's going to run your standard hard drive, like laptops type hard drive, pretty hard. Yeah. So that's, I mean, certainly compact flash. That'll do it, but I mean that's a lot. That's a lot of data going right there.
Well, that's the thing, because a lot of other ones, that are running 4K will record to CF. Both the NX1 and the GH4 record to SD card. But I think the limit for the limit for the GH4 I think is 100 megabits.
Wow.
Or 200, but I think 200, funnily enough, is for the 1080p and not the 4K. But obviously the 1DC uses a lot more, and it uses CF cards, so you'd be constantly hot swapping out cards and stuff. But there's other.
So it is doable. So the 4K for kind of like prosumer, would you say, is doable right now?
Yeah, definitely.
It's just that it's kind of on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
So it gets to the point where you've got to really work with you've got to hope the software works or gets updated, and you've got to like use some of the most cutting edge storage options to really get it running. But it is possible.
It's more, I think it's still at the point where the adoption is definitely there for the, the professional. There's a ton of great cameras for semi-professional upwards. Okay. Sony have released new cameras like the FS7, and you're getting, really good slow motion. Like I think they're doing like 120 frames per second at 4K and stuff like that.
Good, yeah.
So I mean they're pretty shit hot. But I think for Joe Blogs just wanting a camcorder to film his family, I don't think 4K is as much of a need yet. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't know how many people are buying camcorders these days. I was in a shop the other day, and the quality of a camcorder you can get these days for the money is crazy. Like you can get a fucking shit hot camera for not a lot of money, because people are all either buying DSLRs with the videos built in, or compact cameras, or phones, and then their phone takes their picture and their video, and they're sitting there going, why the fuck would I carry a camcorder with me as well that I've got to charge? And it's just too much bother for some people.
I think camcorders must be, I mean, for like just people on the street, people who go on holiday and they want to make a video for their holiday trip.
Yeah,
I don't imagine many will be going into a camera shop, anyone you choose, and buying a camcorder, a standalone camcorder, because it's just like when you can get a good quality 1080p video on your not too expensive smartphone, and even some of the new ones are doing 4K.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a very big sensor and glass for it, but you can actually get 4K video out of a not too expensive smartphone,
and then immediately upload it.
Exactly. And then you've got it onto Facebook and you're sharing it with all your family, and I think they are trying to go with those kind of features on these camcorders.
Yeah, you get these kind of Frankenstein cameras from ones like, what was it? Samsung had their Galaxy camera,
Galaxy S Zoom, and it had
I like Sony though, back to their fucking usual batshit crazy roots of building add-ons for their mobile phones. Like the clip-on lenses and everything. They've actually got
I love
Sony.
Lenses. Sony are just so crazy. I mean, I was just reading something today about Sony. Have you seen their new Sony Walkman?
This is this one that's ridiculously expensive, isn't it?
$1,200.
Yeah.
1,200 of your American dollars for an MP3 player.
Yeah.
Well, a FLAC player. Well, it's a proprietary Sony format, but you know what I mean.
Is it? What is it?
Well, I think it can do FLAC, but they're also touting a format that they've won as well, so that it can play everything, and it can play it really well. But my goodness, £1,200.
Do you know, there'll be people that will buy it.
$12, sorry.
There will be people that buy it, because there's plenty of people that have, like, there's iPhones and everything out there that people have got different amplifiers and processors and stuff on them. Yeah. They've actually physically had their phones rewired with different boards on it.
I mean, it must be for like the super audiophile market.
Oh, it's not. It's
I guess there is a market there, but you wouldn't have thought Sony, the people who made the Walkman, people who made something which is consumer friendly and able to just be used and abused, and kids can have them, and they've been reduced to making super high end audiophile equipment.
I don't know, mate. Look at Sony over the years, some of the stuff they do. They come up with genius stuff, but then they release, like, Aibo, their robot dog. And then, they had computers like the Sony UX. Do you remember that? The one that had the slide-out screen. And that was mega bucks. There was the Sony P and stuff as well. They do a lot of experimental stuff, and they've had a lot of experimental stuff with the Walkmans and stuff as well. They just like bringing out these premium products. And I don't know if it's as much... Just like they must sink a ton of money into R&D, Sony, because sometimes it feels like they're only competing with themselves.
It does, but it also, I mean, it just seems that nothing they've made recently, other than the PlayStation, has really resonated with people in the same way as their competitors have been. I mean,
well, and they're doing well on the camera side of stuff.
Have they been taking... Because that's the thing I was going to ask you about. That's the thing where they have really been making... Because before, you said a Sony Alpha, and you're like, oh, couldn't afford a Canon or a Nikon. Oh, no way. But are they taking a bit of a...
They're knocking fuck out of a couple of people now in terms of specs and what they're providing. I mean, like cameras like their FS7, which is their kind of one of the professional video ones, is great. They've got the Sony F5 and F55 that are doing really great for broadcast, and then they've got their mirrorless cameras are doing really well as well, and they're giving you great value for money. There's a camera for the Sony A7S, which is doing, absolutely mental low light performance. I saw a couple of pictures where some guys had managed to, they were using a light, like a match to light the entire room, and they managed to actually overexpose the entire room just using a match. Like the low light performance is so impressive on it. But they went a different route with that. They've got three bodies. The A7 system, there's the A7, the A7R, and the A7S. The S, I think, is for sensitivity, and that's only a 12 megapixel sensor. Mm-hmm. And the idea for that was to make the most sensitive camera. The other ones have got, I think, like closer to 40 megapixels in terms of stuff. They're not quite as good for it, but in terms of what they're offering for the money, Sony are offering a shitload, and they're doing a lot better, and they've definitely recovered or they've actually gained a lot of ground because as far as the kind of DSLR market, there was only really a handful of people that were actually standing going, these are actually pretty good, and then everyone else was too busy banging their Canon or Nikon drums over the top of it. But those drums in more recent years, definitely in the the camera side of things have quieted down, definitely in the Canon camp anyway.
Because it has, I mean, in this non-expert's opinion, it seems to have shifted a little bit from these big DSLRs to a lot more of the market going to the more micro four thirds cameras, the mirrorless cameras, where you don't need such a massive body and you still get excellent results out of them. I mean, would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, definitely, and I think there's a lot of advantages to them as well. Like these mirrorless cameras, because they don't have a mirror, can have like a proper video viewfinder, so you can get a full approximation of what you're seeing and what kind of pictures you're taking. Whereas obviously in the conventional ones, you've got an optical viewfinder. You don't get the same setup, and you're getting more instantaneous.
I guess so. But I guess you're limited by the by whatever digital viewfinder you can get.
Yeah, but I mean, some of them are going to the OLED ones now, and they're pretty good.
That'd be nice. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
But yeah, anyway, there's definitely a lot coming up. I think this year we're going to see a lot more headway than we have, in previous years and stuff as well. But I think we're also going to start to see some unnecessary stuff as well, like 15-inch or actually even less, probably like 13-inch displays with like 4K on it, and I just don't think people are going to get the benefit of it.
I know for a fact that there's 15.6 inch laptops with 4K, I think now available or about to be available. So
are they 4K or Ultra HD? This is the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do apologise. They are Ultra HD. You are quite correct.
See, that's the other annoying things because
3.8K.
Yeah, there's two different types of 4K as well. Yep. Just when they thought they were going to standardise something, they'd like to make it more difficult as well.
That's right. With things like Netflix, I mean, would I be right in saying that is UHD?
Yeah, that's Ultra HD.
Yeah. So is it just the film industry really that uses 4K in the 4K sense, the actual?
Yeah, well, I mean, but in saying that though, a lot of stuff still gets delivered in Ultra HD. I think Ultra HD's definitely been locked in for broadcast, and I think actually a lot of films are getting put out in Ultra HD as well because it's kind of like a compromise in terms of like streaming and quality,
Yeah.
But there's been cameras for many years, like the Red cameras have been doing 4K for ages, but I mean, they're all up at like 6K, and I think there's even 8K cameras knocking about now.
They are starting to come on stream, yeah.
So
that's the thing. If you're going to start making a film now, would you do it in 4K or would you do it in 8K?
I don't know if you'd need to do it in 8K, but I know obviously any of them that are shooting on the new Red Dragon cameras are shooting at 6K, so I mean, but then again it gives them more options in post-production and stuff too, but it's just that thing. It's for me at the point that I'm at, I could start going into 4K, but there's most people ask me for 1080p, but they've only recently just started asking for HD.
Okay.
For the longest time. Recently,
there's always DVD before then.
Well, yeah, there's plenty of people, and you're shooting stuff in full 1080p, and they're still asking to get it in DVD. There's just some people that just aren't there yet. There's some people that aren't at the 1080p point, let alone the 4K point. But I think certainly the people that are interested in it and more general buyers this year are going to start to be swung when it starts to get into places like Curry's and like the kind of place where a lot of the consumer people would buy their TVs, and once a 4K telly comes in and it's £700 and it's 40 inches, I think you'll start to see people going, you know what, let's do it.
Yeah, I think it's starting to happen now, and I think at the end of this year, if you start looking at the sales, it's going to get a point where there will be a tipping point either this year or the start of next year, where the majority of TV sales are going to be, especially in the larger sizes, are going to be 4K, because it's just the future, and the people who are making the panels, like LGs and Samsungs, who are churning these things out in bulk, are starting to switch their, how everyone ditched plasma back, a while back.
Sure.
They're starting to switch over to their, much higher pixel pitch TVs now, because those are the panels people are starting to want, and they're going to churn them out in massive numbers. And it starts getting to a point where it's economies of scale. They're making so many 4K TVs, then they can just start dropping the 1080p ones off their product lines, putting the 4Ks there, and not really charging any more money for them. So soon enough we'll have a point where there is no more price premium for 4K. And I just hope that they don't go down the route of trying to lock it down to 4K at 30 hertz, because it's easier to do it with HDMI 1.4.
Yeah.
I see a lot of them are running at HDMI 2.0 now, which does allow 4K at 60 hertz, and allowing at the same time a display port on a TV would be just, if they could do that, that'd be fantastic, because it means that then people who are using PCs or Macs or whatever can then plug their computer into their television and get the full 4K at 60 hertz experience. And it's just not difficult, really.
I'm sceptical that we will see DisplayPort outside of monitors, to be honest.
You think so?
I think they're going to, if they get, if they start...
It's free. It's part of Visa.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, but I just don't see them doing it. I think that now HDMI is kind of ingrained in people's minds. They know that is the high definition connector. They've got the cables. It's compatible with the existing devices.
I guess so,
if it's a HDMI 2 port, then that will mean it will work with the new ones as well. I mean, as much as I would like to see it, I think we probably won't see DisplayPort out of monitors.
I fear you are correct, but I still hope.
Don't fear I'm correct. Don't fear I'm correct, because a lot of the times I'm correct about things that are correct, that are good to be correct about.
Okay.
So, Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But so hopefully we've answered more questions than we've posed, but I fear we may not have. This is often the case.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I was just going to mention one thing about 4K.
Go on.
There's one thing that I personally have a big interest in, which is a bit niche at the moment, but it's going to get bigger. It's virtual reality.
Oh, yeah. All right, yeah. You know what? That's a good point. I will let you have this talk. Carry on.
Okay. Well, this is one area where those extra pixels, the extra resolution, really makes a big difference. Because, I mean, one of the main parts of virtual reality right now, one of the main driving forces is Oculus, which is now owned by Facebook. And they've released 2 versions of their kit called the Rift, which is a headset you put on, and it has a screen inside it that you then has like some lenses that focus in on the screen, and very clever head tracking. So when you move your head around, it actually feels like you're in a place, and you're actually able to interact with it in a very, very weird and interesting way. And there's a lot of interesting and innovative experiences that are already available. And I think a lot of games companies are starting to work on it, as well as people doing marketing, loads of different areas. So there's a lot of use for it. But the big problem it has right now, the real thing that's stopping it from being truly immersive, is the resolution of the panels. So right now they're using the same kind of panel that is used in the Galaxy Note 3. So
that's the 2560 by 1440?
No, that's the Note 4. The Note 3 is the 1080p one. So 1080p Pentile AMOLED. That's what's in the DK2. That's what's currently commercially available. You can buy that now. They've been showing off one which uses, we believe, hasn't been confirmed, but one uses a 1440p display, the same as the Note 4. And also Samsung has released the Gear VR, which is a VR headset that uses the full Note 4 as the processor and as the screen. That's also 140p. Right. But even with these 140p panels, you get an effect called the screen door effect. So it feels like, because there's definite pixels that you can actually see, because the screen is so close to you and you're basically magnified into it due to the lenses, you can see the individual pixels. So even though you've got some kind of amazing vista in front of you, or the galaxy, you can still see the little dots. So it feels like you're actually up next to a mesh, and you're seeing the world through a mesh.
You can see through the matrix.
You can see through, exactly. You know you're in a simulation. But as you increase the resolution, those pixels become smaller and smaller, and you actually start losing that screen door effect. It feels like you're there. Even with 4K, I think there might still be something of a screen door effect, but because it's 4 times the resolution of what's in the current version, I think it's going to get so much better, and people will be able to put it on and really be truly in a place. And I think when that happens, we're going to see a big new media platform. So people will be making films not just for TVs and not just for the cinema and for watching on your monitor or on your tablet. They'll be making films in 3D, in entire 360 vision, so that people can be in a film. And I think people like Oculus and other companies have started using 3D 360-degree cameras, so that you can look in stereoscopic all the way around you as something is being filmed. So you feel like you're being in there. You can't move around. Your movement is controlled, but you get a really clever kind of experience being there. And there's going to be so much new content with this. So I think these high resolution cameras and high resolution displays are going to feed into this, and it's going to be a huge new platform that in the next year or two is going to take real big leaps and bounds. They say that the Oculus is likely to be released at the end of this year. So some interesting things, and not just virtual reality, but everything that's associated with making films is likely to be affected by it.
Next up, Cyberdyne.
Could be. So
they're trying to box us in, Andrew, with these fake alternate realities. I think what's most ironic of all, though, is the fact that Facebook's bought them. And being on Facebook a lot of the time, it feels like people are living in a virtual world and that anyway. The amount of lies and stuff that are going on, and people living vicariously through it. So
that's it.
Yeah, maybe that's...
Well, what they have said is the people who are Facebook said, we in no way want to have a virtual Facebook in the way that you have it now, where you have your news feeds and you have your wall and all that stuff. They don't want to make that 10 foot tall in front of you. I think that what they'd rather have is something like a massively multiplayer online game. It's something like World of Warcraft, but it's people and able to go and do things in different places. More like, have you ever experienced Second Life?
I haven't, but I am aware of its existence.
Yeah, it's same here. But I think more the concept than the execution. But it's if you can put somebody into a virtual space where they can look around and look at other people who are looking at them, and then go and do things with these people who may be hundreds, thousands of miles away, and just go watch a sporting event or participate in a discussion. I think that is what they bought. That is what Oculus sold Facebook. And to be honest, looking what I've seen so far and what's available, it's possible, and it's going to be happening very soon.
Sold them a dream. A dream that we are now soon to all be part of.
That's right. We're the content.
Exactly. Well, that's it. I guess that's the big issue. The stuff's there to display it on now. It's getting their video content out there. And not paying a massive fucking premium on it. Because even on things like the iTunes stores just now, that you're getting humped a bit for the HD. So
it's always
if 4K comes out, it's got to become a reasonable price. Yeah.
I mean, for iTunes, they better push everything down their pricing tier when 4K comes out, because people aren't going to be willing to spend a massive premium, because they're not going to spend a massive premium on their 4K TV. They're going to spend as much as they spent 4 years ago on their 1080p TV. So they're not likely to be wanting to spend 50% extra just to get something in 4K.
Yeah. Well, chances are Apple and the other content delivery platforms have listened to us, and they're going to buck up their attitude.
Almost definitely. Yeah. Just wait for it. Just wait for the press release.
That'll be coming out, and they'll maybe come to us and go, guys, what can we do? And we will stand there and say, well, you can give us it for free for a start. That'd be nice.
That would be nice, yeah.
But yeah.
With no adverts.
But yeah, so I'm reckoning in 2015 we're going to see quite a bit of it, both on the ability to capture 4K. There's going to be more and more cameras. There's plenty already, but there's going to be more and more. Yeah. And there's going to be content. There are going to be things like, obviously YouTube's going to HTML5.
Yeah. I think the content, from what I've seen, the content is going to be mainly online. Yeah. But with internet speeds going up, that's probably a good thing, because everything should really be online.
Yeah, no. Instant gratification, that's what we like these days.
Absolutely.
And things like 8.265 are going to make that more attainable with its much smaller file size and higher quality. I mean, some of the stuff I've already seen with 8.265 is incredible. Like, super high quality files with tiny bit rates. Mm-hmm. And that is the dream to be lived. And I think this year we will start to see a glimmer of that dream and hopefully be in it.
I look forward to it.
And not just in our virtual reality headsets, in real life.
Hopefully in real life too. Looking at our screen in our house.
The world we live in.
I know.
Well, on that note, I'd like to round up this one. Thanks very much for joining me, Andy.
Thank you, Calum. It's been a pleasure.
And I dare say you'll be back on for other things in future as we kind of ramp up stuff on this channel and start to get it going. But hopefully you guys have found some kind of concurrent sense somewhere in this. And also at the same time, if you guys got any questions, put it in the comment and we'll Google it for you and find out.
Thanks for listening.
See you guys. Bye.